Coming up on Joni, our hormone talk turns to pregnancy and birth control.
Research, and listen to when it says these could be all the side effects.
What's safe, what's not, and what to do to keep your pregnancy from going terribly wrong.
The reason women miscarry is there's not enough progesterone to keep the lining strong and healthy for the baby.
The Lord has given us a way out, and there is natural progesterone.
Next. I have a lot of great friends. Some are funny.
Most of the time, I'm absolutely brilliant.
And some are intense.
It would behoove you to listen to what I gotta say.
But we love to get together and talk.
I hate to gossip, but now I can get into some serious girl talk.
No topic is too shocking,
We are not ready for that.
and no subject is too tough.
I don't know about you, but in my life, I've had some issues.
My friends have an opinion about everything. I can be too blunt or too candid. So grab a seat and join the conversation. This is Joni Table Talk.
Well, I want to welcome you to another fabulous edition of Table Talk. This series has been all about hormones, what they are, how they affect us, what to do, what to take, and why no one needs to cry themselves to sleep. But today we are specifically dealing with hormones surrounding pregnancy and non-pregnancy. So we start Table Talk with something every newlywed needs to learn more about: birth control. So let's get right into it with my panel of experts, family, and friends. On the end is my dear friend Magali Hall.
Yes.
And you like talking about hormones.
Oh, I love talking about hormones because I feel so good when I use the natural hormones.
When you use natural hormones, and that's the
hormones.
secret. And Cindy, my dear friend for many, many years, going to share some of your story today about kind of what to stay away from.
Oh, absolutely.
Your personal experience. I have found that in watching television, a lot of times you will hear the experts tell you one thing, but I really listen to people's personal experiences. I mean, because if someone has gone through something, you can learn so much from them and maybe not make the same mistake. And next to me is my mother, Sandra Trammell, and you have been on synthetic hormones, but now you're off.
I'm off.
Yes.
Been off for years
Praise
now.
the Lord, saints.
Yes.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
So we'll talk some with you about that. And our expert, Barbara Hoffman, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
And you're always excited to talk about hormones.
Very much so. It's
Okay.
my field, my mission field. yes.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about birth control. Because whether you believe in birth control or not, that's between you and the Lord. But for women that are thinking about going on birth control, women that are getting married, young women in their 20s and 30s who say, you know, I don't want to get pregnant, I want to use birth control. I thought it would be great, Cindy, if you could tell your story of something that you used for birth control and you had a really bad experience.
Terrible experience. And I would just say research, and listen to when it says these could be all the side effects. You know, they're telling you these are things that can happen. But an unbelievable weight gain came on.
And what exactly did you use?
It was a shot. And it was, you know, a lot of times we want to go with convenience and we don't want to have to bother with things. And so let's go with what's convenient. And sometimes the thing that's the most convenient can be the most detriment.
So the shot
your
would
body.
say, so they said if you take this shot of synthetic hormones.
I think it lasts like a couple of months or so.
So it lasts several months. Are you familiar with this, Barbara?
Yes, I
am.
am.
And what is she talking about?
Well, it's a shot that is composed usually of a high dose of estrogen and progestins, which is the synthetic progesterone, which basically shuts down your entire reproductive system. Stops it.
Which can't be normal.
Is not normal. Your ovaries are supposed to be producing hormones.
Because there's a reason why the Lord created us that way, right? For those hormones to keep flowing.
Yes.
So for you to synthetically shut that down.
Shut it down.
For convenience sake. And Cindy, I will say you didn't know any of this information.
I had no idea. The
So
fatigue that I suffered.
What were some of your symptoms? I mean, like immediately after you had the shot?
I felt like immediately the fatigue, the weight gain was almost like I woke up one morning and, oh my goodness, what happened?
Why the weight gain from that, Barbara?
Well, the hormones are supposed to be keeping everything in balance. Hormones are the messengers. So now you've got two hormones that are completely synthetic. Now the other hormones are not getting their proper messages. So now your melatonin and your insulin are off. And those are both very, very important for keeping your weight down, and especially you're going to gain weight right around the middle, and it is nuclear. And you look down, and one day it wasn't there, and the next day it's there.
That's the muffin top, right?
The muffin top.
Oh, the muffin
pooch.
top. God forbid. I mean, when you and when you go through perimenopause, that's another. I mean, that's like a place. Like for the first time, I started gaining some right there, and I had never had any weight there, and it's just from the pit of hell that weight gain right there.
Well, and when we put these synthetic things into our body, like you said earlier, our body does not know what to do with this thing because it's not like the natural estrogen, the natural progesterone that our body is making. And so the body reacts in crazy ways. And the fatigue was, I don't even know how to describe to you the fatigue that I suffered.
I remember during that time that you were happily married.
Very happily married.
But you just had all these symptoms, I mean, and you just didn't feel good, and you're just like, I don't know what's wrong with me, Joni. I can't sleep at night. I'm waking up, and these are all this is a natural effect from synthetic hormones.
And as Magali knows, because you've also had the experience with studying natural hormones, excess estrogen can cause crashing fatigue, unbelievable fatigue that you actually could think you're dying or have cancer. And that's one of the probably what happened with you. And you're also telling that little hormone system to shut down and be quiet. Don't do anything. Then when you want to have a baby, you're saying, okay, let's go. You may have infertility problems after that. So it's very
I can attest
dangerous.
to that because I work with a lot of young people, and they get married, they've had to control the shots, and then a couple years later when they're ready to start a family, they couldn't. It has become very difficult.
So you're taking something that God created and basically making it off kilter, so to speak, and then it can just be like a descending effect where other things are affected.
Domino
Everything's
Domino effect. Thank you. I was looking. It was a D word, but I didn't remember what that was. Okay. So anyway, now you're back on track.
Yes.
And
it took some time.
This is reversible. I mean, can you get the
absolutely.
synthetic stuff out of your system?
Yes. The synthetic will come out. You need to take in, and first of all, if you have too much estrogen, you want to get a good natural progesterone cream and start using it, because that's going to offset the symptoms, especially in the brain.
Yeah.
You need that for your brain. There's progesterone receptor sites in the entire body, and you're giving those sites a counterfeit substance, and can cause cancer, heart attack, stroke, blood clots, lots of disease. So definitely want to get people on a natural.
Let's answer this question, Magali and Barbara. Magali, our nutritionist, and Barbara, our hormone expert. What can women do that say they don't want to get pregnant? I mean, obviously we know the rhythm method is one way if women have normal cycles, right? You can use the rhythm method. But what other birth control is out there and available?
Well, I will tell you, for all the ladies out there, I have researched this from my very first days, because I understand about not wanting to get pregnant, and there is nothing in nature that will shut down your reproductive system. God did not make anything. There's nothing we can find in the rainforest or anywhere that will shut it down that's natural. So what the experts agree, and I do so much continuing medical education, and I bring this to you from the experts. They say lowest dose birth control pill for shortest amount of time, maybe 3 months, maybe 4. Stop, throw the responsibility, well, I shouldn't say throw, ease the responsibility over to the man. For another 3 months. Then, then you
So
can
that
go,
would be like a
you're-
condom?
Yes. So you're not putting your body months and months and months into being shut down. But until there's such a thing as a natural birth control pill, which I don't think ever can be found, the other thing is to get those little strips that women use to see if they're ovulating, and you can use those, and when you know you're ovulating, abstain.
When we first got married, and that was 27 years ago, we did the, I used the birth control pill for like 1 year. But I didn't really have any problems with it. But you know what? I was so glad to get off of it. It's just something I didn't really like to take it. I didn't feel as good. And so, I think that's good advice that you have given. And are there low dosage?
Yes, there are
birth
very
control?
low, and ask your doctor for the lowest. And the reason that we now have the low doses is because so many women suffered and got blood clots, you know, so now we have low dose birth control pill. And the experts agree, shortest amount of time, you know, that you can work out with your husband. Bless their hearts.
All right, well, we have to take a quick break, but stay with us for an important topic every woman planning on having a child needs to hear. We'll be right back. Well, Table Talk is back and we are chit-chatting about hormones again. We covered birth control, the dangers of synthetic drugs, and some natural ways to prevent becoming the world's next octomom. Now a more serious discussion on pregnancy and why it sometimes goes wrong. It's any expectant mother's worst nightmare, a miscarriage. Why do they happen? Can we prevent them? How important is the food we eat? What about vitamins, etc.? So let's get right into it. One of the things that I know we have heard testimonies of, and Barbara, maybe you can talk a little bit about it, and Mom, you too, is that women that are trying to get pregnant, and maybe they do get pregnant, but they are miscarrying. And this is really a big problem, isn't it, Barbara?
Yes, actually, because the progesterone levels are so low in our country now because of all the estrogen dominance and ovulatory cycles because of stress and nutrition, as Magali can tell you more. But one of the things that you want to do is get your progesterone levels high, because you may not be getting pregnant because you may be fertilizing a little egg, but it doesn't plant, so it just comes out as a period, and you think you're not getting pregnant, you're just having a period. So coming out of infertility, which I was in for many years, we always use natural progesterone to get the uterine lining strong, and then the egg implants, and it doesn't miscarry.
Now, I know, Mom, you have actually heard testimonies that have been called in here at Daystar from women who were using natural progesterone cream that weren't able to carry their babies or whatever, and they then begin to use it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, actually, we've had at least 3 of our own employees that had miscarried, wanted children, were able to get pregnant, but had miscarried, not once, not twice, but sometimes as many as 3 times.
Wow.
So we talked them into using the progesterone, the natural
cream.
progesterone cream, and they used it, each one of them, the first trimester, and used it every day. And every one of those young ladies, when they did this, had their babies delivered fine, carried their babies 9 months, and each one of them had miscarried at least 2 to 3 times before this. So we saw this.
So now, Barbara, why would the progesterone, natural progesterone, help with carrying them being able to carry the babies?
Well, the reason women miscarry is there's not enough progesterone to keep the lining strong and healthy for the baby. So when you get the lining strong, and then the little egg implants, it holds it there in place for you. It's very simple. It's God's plan.
Oh, wow. How can they know how much, let's say they're young girls and are trying to get
Well, if you're a young girl and you're trying to get pregnant, you would just use the physiological dose, which means that's what your body makes. So it's about 40 milligrams per day.
And how
We'll
much
do
is
it.
that, 40
That's
milligrams?
maybe a half teaspoon of a good natural progesterone cream. And then now if you really have had miscarriages, what you want to do is before you stop your cream, like day 12 through 26, you're using it, before you stop, you want to take a pregnancy test. If you're pregnant, stay on that cream for the next 3 months.
Wow.
And by the way, I just want to say that when you're pregnant, the reason you feel so good and happy is you're making 300 milligrams of progesterone a day. And progesterone is called the feel-good hormone.
It is.
Why wouldn't we want to feel good and have
Yes.
our progesterone levels high?
And when I was pregnant, all 3 times, Jonathan, Rachel, and Rebecca, it's like I felt so good. And everyone would say that you look the best pregnant. And my skin was like perfect.
Luminescent, yes.
Yeah, and so progesterone is a very good hormone for us to have.
It's the feel-good hormone. If you want to feel good and you don't, I say just go to wherever you can and get a good natural progesterone cream and start using it. You can't overdose
So
on
now
it.
why are we so depleted in progesterone?
Well, I'm going to toss that over to Magali because she really understands the nutrition.
Yeah, one of the reasons is because of nutrition. And as you know, a lot of the foods that we eat is full of hormones, the synthetic hormones, not the natural hormones. So when you eat that, it just overtakes the body and it depletes the natural progesterone in the body.
So I know that many of you will recognize the term estrogen dominance. We live in an estrogen dominance world.
Yes.
And so we have a lot of things that we use in our everyday life. For instance, like when you use that plastic wrap and you put something in the microwave, you know, and you heat it up with that plastic or in a plastic bowl, there's synthetic estrogens that will leach into your food from those plastics, right?
Yes.
And so, I mean, there's a myriad of other things.
See, another thing to be careful on is carrying water bottles in the plastic containers, leaving in the car. It gets hot, and then you keep it in the car for a few days, because I know people that carries like dozens of bottles in their trunk, but it stays in the heat. It gets hot. And that produces a lot of estrogen, and that's really, really bad.
And you know, think about it. Years ago, everything was produced in glass bottles. You know, you remember everybody till this day. I don't really drink a lot of soft drinks, but if I'm going to drink one, like those glass Cokes or the glass Dr. Pepper, they taste so much better because that glass bottle is so much better than the plastic.
Because there's not any of the chemical interaction with it.
And the other thing, Magali, is we touched on this just a moment ago, is that we get hormones in our food that we don't even realize that we're getting.
Correct.
So if we go to the grocery store and we go to the meat counter, all of that meat has been injected with synthetic hormones. And why? Why do they inject it with synthetic hormones?
They do because of the growth. It grows faster.
Oh,
and
so it's all about money then.
Exactly.
So you
all
grow
about
a bigger
money.
chicken, a bigger
that's why
cow.
we gain
Correct.
weight
And then
on
we
them.
grow faster, and then
Okay.
our kids mature sooner.
So that's why our young girls are maturing physically.
And that's why
And
young
young
girls
men
are
sometimes are getting
having
breast.
their cycle.
And our young men.
Yeah, the young men get breast also.
So
and
what else are we getting? Where else are we getting synthetic hormones? Not only in the meat, but what else, Barbara?
Well, the xenoestrogens, which are environmental, and they're in the pesticides and herbicides. A lot of men who work in the garden and are out there doing with the pesticides and herbicides, you have to be really careful with that because they're breathing that in.
What about dairy?
In the milk, so try to
about
buy
the-
hormone-free milk.
What about the butter? And
Butter is okay.
Is
Usually,
it?
yeah, with butter, I like butter.
But if you don't get organic
butter.
if you don't get organic butter, could you have?
Yeah, so try to get organic butter. Yes,
butter
I
is
agree
better
with that.
for you.
We don't usually eat that much, butter
Yeah.
unless.
I like butter too.
Yes.
So you said we cannot overdose on progesterone?
If you
Can't get
took a
too
whole
much?
jar, if you took a really good natural cream and did the whole jar, you might want to lay down and take a nap. I've had people that have taken it
before you overdose.
So
yeah,
it's
it just
safe.
can make you drowsy. It's very safe. Think of it. It doesn't harm a fetus. 300 milligrams a day, which would be
in the placenta.
doesn't harm a fetus. It's not going to harm an adult woman or man.
Wow, that is amazing. So now, in talking, let's see, we've talked about birth control, we've talked about miscarrying, and when you do get pregnant. So now what about if someone is pregnant? How important is hormonal balance during pregnancy?
Well, God takes care of that. He's pumping in through the body so much progesterone that you're usually very balanced. the minute the placenta is delivered, your progesterone is gone. That's why a lot of people have what the baby blues or the postpartum blues. So that's a really good time when you could just start to use, if you feel yourself going in that withdrawal.
I only had that like 2 days after Jonathan was born. I didn't know what it was. I had never experienced it before. But I felt that kind of let down, kind of like my world was over, and here was this precious little human being that I was going to have to take care of for the rest of my life, and I would never sleep again. that on top of the hormonal change, and it can be a little overwhelming.
Yes. Well, I was an infertility patient, had this beautiful little boy.